Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher. This is week 3 for the WTF What the Football podcast, and we have had quite the week. So let me start with actually Sunday night football. The Kansas City Chiefs at New York Giants. What a football game. That was just, it was so strange. I mean, you had just two teams that were 0-2, not playing well, and Patrick Mahomes kept throwing lateral passes, which is backward passes as well, and he actually recovered a fumble that he made. A loose fumble. And so it was just a strange game. Kansas City finally pulled out a win, 22-9. But the one thing that I noticed, and I'm sure a lot of you did too, and these are probably the what the football moments, we may see, I think his name is Jackson Dart, coming out as quarterback soon, because Russell Wilson he might have had a decent game last week, but his first game with the Giants was terrible. And last night was no different. And they were booing everything he did. And it is a tough market in New York. And so it'll be interesting to see at what point they just decide. I mean, they're 0-3 now. The fans are probably saying, what the football? When are we just going to put in our rookie? You drafted him in the first round. It's just time to cut our losses and not deal with a 36-year-old quarterback who apparently, can't get it done for us with his interceptions and just bad decision making, and it's not good. A couple of unfortunate former Steeler players that are now done for the season. Our former running back Najee Harris, which I was actually really sad we let him go, who is now with the LA Chargers. He suffered a torn Achilles. I knew as soon as I saw that injury. It was a non-contact injury. And not to be crass or anything, but he was one of my backup running backs on my fantasy teams too. And I immediately got on the waiver wire and said, who's available? Because I knew he was going to be out. James Conner, Arizona, he was stepped on and it was gruesome. And I was bummed that they replayed it because you're like, oh, nobody wants to see that. What the football people. But he's out with an ankle surgery for ankle fracture. And so those were some definite moments that no one really needed to see those. But there was some very interesting things that went on. One of the games that I was just like, what are they doing over there in Tennessee? So the Colts played the Titans, and the Colts won again. And, there was one part where the Titans were trying to at least try a field goal attempt on 17-6 Titans, right? Or 17-6 Colts, so Titans were down. And the fans were booing. It went Colts timeout, Titans delay of game, and that was on a field goal attempt. And then he tried to make a 62-yarder and missed wide left. There was just no way, he was going to make it. He didn't even have the distance. But it was just such a mess. And you have to look at your team sometime and think, what are you doing here? It was pretty interesting. Circling back to the Steelers, and our game, I thought this was interesting because, and I'll say because obviously Steel City Underground, this is, the main team that we talk about that we really like. But in playing the Patriots, so the first thing for me as far as what the football is, we didn't have to look across the field and see Bill Belichick. I was pretty happy about that. But, their new coach, Mike Vrabel, he used to be a Patriot. I actually like him. I thought he did a good job. I think he was with the Titans before, and then the Patriots picked him up after the last coach didn't do so well. But we did not play a good game, and we still, the defense still managed to squeak out 5 turnovers, and, we had one ourselves. But what was interesting about that game, or I guess the word's not interesting, is what are we doing is third downs. And it wasn't even third and short, third and 1, 3rd and 2. You get those sometimes with that ridiculous push-tush that's out there that everybody's trying now, quarterback sneaks, all that. But when you are 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 10, and I think there was a 3rd and 14, and we are not getting off the field. There was a time where our defense was on the field for 31 minutes. And Aaron Rodgers even said it at the end, and he's not one known to, I would say, take responsibility for errors. Traditionally, when he was with Green Bay, he would always blame it on everyone else. I even saw him do it a couple times when he's on the Jets. But he's been taking a lot of responsibility for not only his own play, but really doing a nice job as far as showering, praise on our defense. And they kept us in it, even though we couldn't get off the field at a certain time. They did keep us in it. They had to be so tired at some point, especially when we had something called back and they were celebrating on the field and they had to run all the way down the field. It's like, don't do that until you know for sure. But also, Herbig had a nice sack and forced a fumble, and he's one of our backups. I think he needs to be a starter. He's done such a good job, why we deal with Highsmith being out. And TJ Watt, he didn't do much in the first quarter, but then boy, did he come on strong. He had such a game, and we were very excited about that. Derek Harmon, who, remember, he wasn't able to play his rookie year, but he's come back. He was on a limited snap count in his first NFL game back, and he had a sack, 3 pressures. When he was in the game, the run game was limited to 2.2 yards. And remember, he's only 21 years old. He is going to be one heck of a defensive player. We saw a great comeback by Calvin Austin. You remember week 2, he did not help us with, deflecting a interception, but I thought he came back really, really well this week, and you can see that Aaron has trust in that speedster there. But some of the WTF moments were just, they were kind of writing themselves as I was looking at some of the different things that were happening around the league. And let me just give you a couple. I was just like, really? This is just so weird. So remember the Young Ho Koo, that was a Falcons kicker. He had lost his job because he did not do well at the end of last season, and then the first game he was just terrible. So then they switched to kicker John Parker Romo. He goes 5 for 5 in his debut, and they cut Young Ho Koo. Well, guess what happened in week 3? He goes 0 for 2 in his second game in. So they did not have a great game at all. It's 42 points. They definitely made a statement against the other team, and they were just, it was actually kind of crazy just to watch that. So, when you look at some of the things that happened there, and actually, they were actually shut out 30-0. So I was thinking of a different team. So, it was just a crazy game all the way around for that one. The Falcons couldn't do anything. We saw Kirk Cousins come in at the very end, went 5 for 7 with several yards. So it will be interesting to see what they do with Michael Penix Jr. going down the road. So you can't really pull a veteran and then put a rookie in and then pull him again unless you really believe that he's not ready. And this game definitely against the Panthers, who are not considered one of the better teams, and getting shut out, you just don't know what's going to happen there. Now, in the Vikings game, which, we're going to be playing them coming up here in Ireland, Vikings cornerback Isaiah Rodgers Sr., he's the first player in NFL history. He had a pick 6, a fumble returned for a touchdown, 2 forced fumbles, all in a single game, but that's not the WTF moment. He did it all in one half. So that was kind of crazy. Now, as a Steelers fan, I'm not a Cowboys fan at all. You can't be a Steelers fan and be a Cowboys fan. You just can't. If you've been in the rivalry, I know my husband says since like the 70s, you just can't. I've been in the rivalry since probably the early 80s. I'm a little bit younger than him. And so, and I'm still not. I just think I get tired of hearing the Cowboys America's team thing. But the Bears, you know what? They shut them out. Not with a 0 on the board, but 31-14. They shut them down, I should say. And that was definitely a good moment as far as making sure that you get humbled a little bit. One of the games, the 49ers 16-15 over the Cardinals, and backup quarterback, that was Mac Jones. And, oh, man, was he happy, especially because one thing that people are missing in the league is a good kicker. Thank God we have Chris Boswell. I've said that so many times. Chris Boswell is just like, I think he's going to be our MVP this year because now he didn't kick any field goals in our game, in our week 3, just extra points. But we know that we've got a solid kicker when we have them. Straight down the middle, he can get it done, and a lot of teams don't have that when you need it to win the game. That's the thing. You need a kicker to win the game. And when you've got problems in your kicking team, even the Chiefs had a problem, the Giants had a problem, and they even had Giants that the Gano came out, and you could see how much pain he was in because the backup kicker they had couldn't get it done. And so talk about, what the football moments. It's interesting what will happen with the Raiders. I know that there's a Tom Brady factor there that I mentioned last week, but the Commanders, 41-24 over the Raiders. Everyone thought Pete Carroll coming in, bringing in Geno Smith, this is going to be such the team. Well, not when they play good teams. That's going to be a crazy situation with Raiders because they're not really rebuilding because they have so many veteran players, and getting it done is tough. And they're also in a very tough division. Eagles 33-26. Now that was a fun game to watch, even if they kept going back and forth, because you just knew the Eagles were going to pull it out. You just knew you didn't know how or how they were going to do it, but you just knew. And going back to the Vikings game, 48-10. The Bengals, they're lost without Joe Burrow. This is going to be a painful 3 months for them. Talk about a what the football. It's going to be a very painful 3 months. The defense didn't show up. I don't know what's going to happen with them. Now, do we even want to talk about the Dolphins? Obviously, on Thursday, the Bills beat them 31-21. And I actually thought it was going to be a blowout. They actually held their own for a while. But the Bills, offensively, they don't have issues. But a lot of these teams always look at the points that they gave up. So everyone's happy for the win. Even Steelers, we still gave up, 2 scores. But when you look at the points, the Bills, 31-21, they gave up, 3 touchdowns to the Dolphins. When you look at the Colts, who did win 41-20 over the Titans, they still gave up 3 scores. Even the Commanders, 41-24, they gave up, 4 scores. So when you look at the points against, you just really have to think about it for a second, saying, well, offense is there, but you've heard the phrase, defense wins games, and boy, did the Steelers figure that out yesterday. One of the games that, and actually my favorite post-presser quarterback is Baker Mayfield. He is just hilarious. The Bucks pulled it out at the last minute, 29-27. The Jets, what are you going to say? They obviously, Justin Fields is out, so they've got a backup quarterback. But the Buccaneers, somebody asked him at post-presser, they said, because he has a rookie wide receiver, they said, which catch did you like the best, his one-arm catch or the one way down the field? And he goes, his one-arm catch. He goes, he's disrespecting my throws down the field, catching them with one arm. He goes, rookies. I love that. It was hilarious to me. I absolutely love that. So you've definitely got some comedy coming from that team. Chargers 23-20 over the Broncos. That game, I didn't know what was going to happen there. That was a tough game. I had, of course, my little parlays and bets on there. Did win several $100 because I did well, but the Chargers didn't help me out because they needed to. Their over was 3, and it was 3. So it took my possibly winning almost $700 down to $309 because I pushed on that one. But whatever, I still won. But it was just interesting just to see some of the missteps, the blocked field goals for scoop and score. 2 in one game. The blocked field goal was by one player in the Eagles game, and then he was the one that also came out of the pack to score it. And just seeing those big linebackers try to put on the Jets, and then of course they can't move the rest of the game. That's totally what the football. But it was just such a weird feel yesterday, or I should say on Sunday with games. And Thursday, because just all of the misses and the blocked field goals and the blocked attempts and the missed extra points, and then there was a lot of turnovers in every game. And so that's what is really going to win football games. What your defense can do when your offense is putting up points or isn't putting up points, and your defense is still keeping you in it. And, even the Steelers, we could not get off the field. Again, I can't believe that third down situation. But because we were kept in it with those forced fumbles, and there were the running backs on the Patriots, boy, they got issues. Just keep putting in. They were even on their third running back by the time, and all of them had some issues with ball security. And then their quarterback throwing an interception. I think he also fumbled. It's just crazy when you see some of the lack of ball security and the turnovers in a lot of these games. But this is how games get won. You just don't know if it's ever going to happen until it happens. And it's definitely writes itself. Some of these things that I come to bring on here where, what the football to me is kind of the comedy of the NFL, and we had a lot of it. Won't get to the Lions-Ravens game this week, but I will definitely check in on it for next week. We got a lot to do at Steel City Underground heading. I know Joe is our fearless leader is heading to Ireland with Brian, and so they're going to be there live, and they're very excited about that. And I'm sure we're going to get some live updates on that. So always check the website and check the X account and the Facebook, and you never know what you're going to see there. So everyone, thanks for joining me this week. This is Terry Fletcher, What the Football, Steel City Underground. Have a great rest of your week.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.